Let's get more on the developing racism row after abuse was directed at England players on social media. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury has today been forced to defend the Home Secretary Priti Patel, who was accused of stoking the fire in her previous stance on the subject. Three England players, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka, were subjected to abuse after missing spot kicks in the penalty shootout against Italy. Well, let's speak now to Labour MP Dawn Butler. Hello to you, Dawn. Thanks very much for being with us. We had two very powerful statements last night by Tyrone Mings and Marcus Rashford. Do you feel that their voices are now being heard above the rest of the noise?
Yes, and I think it's important that they speak out. I mean, these footballers, as well as other Black people in the public eye, receive racism before the game, during the game, and now after the game. And this isn't a game to them in their fight to eradicate racism from their daily lives. No, this is the reason why they took the knee, and they made it quite clear. And unfortunately, at the top of our government, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, they decided not to support them in that. They decided to say that it was just the politics and they wouldn't have a part of it. Yet still, when they're on the winning streak, they showed the biggest gesture of politics that they could ever buy themselves an English shirt and then say they're going to support the team. You know, and then to be surprised when the players start receiving racist abuse, the very thing why they were taking the knee, shows either a lack of understanding, complete hypocrisy, or just stupidity in a way.
Boris Johnson spoke out yesterday to condemn the abuse. He told the racists to crawl back under the rock from which they had emerged. We've heard from the Chief Secretary to the Treasury today defending Priti Patel, that she has consistently taken a stand against racism, that it is something she has been a victim of herself. She's said there's no place in our society, that she backs the police in holding those responsible accountable. What more do you want to see from the government?
That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm completely happy that the government is now calling out racism. But to say they've been doing this is doing, from the beginning, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. This government has been the most divisive government I've ever seen in my lifetime. They have stoked a culture war deliberately. They have said that they're having this war on woke. War on woke is about being considerate to others. That's what woke means. And this government has deliberately gone on a path of stoking that, stoking hatred and stoking division in our society. So to now say that they are standing up against racism, I'm glad they're getting there. Everybody has to go on a journey. But to pretend that they've been doing this all along and they are not part of the problem, you know, that's not good enough. People are not stupid. And that is the good thing that I think that has happened. We've learned more about people and society because we've lost. We've learned more about, you know, how people behave and how people think. And what gives me optimism, what makes me optimistic, is the fact that there are far more positive anti-racists in society than there are racists. It's just now people are now seeing the racists for who they are. But there are far more people who are anti-racist, and that gives me hope. It's not led by this government, because this government has done the complete opposite. You know, Boris Johnson gave a wink to Tommy Robinson when he said, "My people go and support him." So, you know, I'm glad they're going on their journey. We've tried really hard in Parliament to bring them on this journey. So I'm glad they're now going on this journey, but they're not going to take any credit for it, I'm afraid, because they're part of the problem.
And yet Priti Patel has previously, in the past, met Tyrone Mings to discuss the issue of racism in football. And at the time, he said she'd seen interested and engrossed in the players' point of view. So that journey had already began, had it not?
So, Sarah, just imagine how disappointed he would have felt when they were taking the knee and she said that it's just the politics. Just imagine having a conversation with the Home Secretary and the Home Secretary saying, I understand, I've been there, I know what racism feels like. And then when you go and do something about it, when you take action, you get no support from that person. Just imagine how that felt to them. And that's what they're highlighting. You know, you will not silence the voices of these young men on the pitch. You won't silence the voices of people who have been fighting racism all of their lives, including myself and many others. You won't silence us in this fight, because society will be better when we eradicate racism. Society will be better when we call it out and we eliminate it from all of the systems and the structural racism in society. You know, when we do that, our society will be better.
Yeah, and as you say, you felt a sense of optimism yesterday by the outpouring of support, the unity behind these players who had experienced racism. How do we harness those voices? They are extremely influential, they have a platform, and they are speaking out on a really important issue of which they, unfortunately, have far too much experience. How do we harness the power of that now?
We keep listening and we keep giving them a platform. We don't shut them down. We don't pretend it doesn't happen. We don't dismiss that it's happening. We don't say it's part of a woke brigade, or we don't say we need to give everybody a freedom of speech. It's not the same thing. Not everybody deserves that privilege. And we keep giving it a platform and we keep calling it out. And then we will see the people that come out and say, actually, I don't want to see that on my football pitch. I don't want to see that on my social media platform. You know, 2 years ago, the government promised an online harms bill. We're still waiting 2 years later for this online harms bill. The government's been kicking this can down the road. We know it's a problem, but they don't want to deal with it deliberately because they think they can win elections by stoking this division in society and having this cultural war. And the majority of us are saying, oh, no way, not on our watch. You know, there is one human race. So let's kind of work together. Let's build a collaboration. You know, let's say that we want a better society. You know, if you take the same people that are abusing people online are being racist, are the same people that are going home and beating their partners. So, you know, we eradicate, we call out these people, we will rid society of many social ills. So it's not just a battle for one, it's a battle for all and a better society.
Yeah, and we do need to discuss the role of social media companies, don't we, giving a platform to these racist views. In the last few minutes, some breaking news that the Prime Minister is to meet social media companies in Downing Street later to discuss how better to tackle online abuse. A spokesperson for Boris Johnson said the PM opened Cabinet by repeating his condemnation of the racist abuse aimed at some of the England team following Sunday's Euro 2020 final. He said the abuse was utterly disgraceful and had emerged from the dark spaces of the internet. He said he would use today's meeting with social media firms to reiterate the urgent need for action ahead of tougher laws coming into force through the online harms bill, which you were mentioning there, Dawn Butler. And he added there is no question this kind of abuse is extremely upsetting, unfair, and needs to be stamped out. Could this, and I know we have talked about this on multiple occasions, Dawn Butler, do you get the sense that this could be a tipping point, that finally that action that has been called for so long might come?
No, this is the Prime Minister doing what the Prime Minister does all the time. You know, he does gesture politics. He's doing something that he thinks will put this to bed. And it won't put it to bed because we've had the online harms bill that's been delayed for 2 years. We've been calling for this on the floor of the House over and over again. You know, when we call out the burning injustices, what does the government do? Produce a race report that says racism doesn't exist. You know, it's not just what you say, it's what you do, and it's how you treat people. You know, the Home Secretary has some draconian measures and draconian laws, and the way she talks about migrants and immigrants is racist. You know, it's racist language that's used to stoke division. So it's not just for this moment. We need to see real action from this government. But what I really want to say, I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who covered Marcus Rashford's picture with warm messages and flowers and like affirmations. Thank you to everybody that's come out and support the players. Thank you to everybody who is an anti-racist in society. I want to say thank you because it's by the power of those people that has actually we're seeing movement, that we're seeing change. And I think we have to be vigilant. We have to constantly be vigilant, and we have to constantly call it out. So thank you to everybody that is in this fight and that is being an anti-racist, because that's what makes a difference. I will not be looking to the Prime Minister because I know his track record. I know the language that he uses. I know how they talk in private on their WhatsApp groups. We know what they're about. We will constantly hold them to account. But at the end of the day, society matters and people matters, and being an anti-racist matters. So thank you to all the anti-racists.
Yeah, and that question, that term anti-racist, what does it mean to be an anti-racist? What do people need to do in order to call this out?
It means that you have to be constantly vigilant. It's not enough just to not be racist or say, I don't say this word or that word, or, I don't discriminate. You have to do more than that. You have to call it out whenever you see it. You have to stand up and say it's wrong. You have to call it out if you see it in a shop. You have to call it out if you see somebody discriminated against. You have to call it out if you see it in your workplace. You have to call it out every single time, and you don't stand for it. And you say, taking the knee is saying we're not going to stand for racists and racism, in our society. That's what it means. And that's what it meant to all of those players who did it on the pitch. And, thank you to Southgate for making sure that he was firmly behind that, for wearing a rainbow armband to say that we're not going to stand for homophobia either. All of this matters if we are going to build a society for everybody. And it's not about tolerant. Nobody wants to be tolerated. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be accepted. So it's about accepting people for who they are, accepting their differences, and not judging people because of the color of their skin or because of their accent or because, of their inability or because they're in a wheelchair. It's about accepting people for who they are. And that's how we build a better society. And that's how you become an anti-racist, not by saying, right, okay, today I'm going to meet with, the social media providers. We've been calling for that for the last 2 years constantly, and you've done nothing. And now the Prime Minister thinks he's going to get a round of applause for that. No chance. Let's see some proper action.
Dawn Butler, thank you.
Thank you.